If you look around the world today, there's this trend that a lot of people are calling a winter of democracy. It feels like in so many places, from long established nations to younger ones, the very idea of freedom is in retreat, with a shadow of authoritarianism creeping in. And it's easy to get cynical, right? The voices questioning whether this whole democratic experiment has finally run its course seem to be getting louder and louder. For a lot of us, it paints a pretty grim picture of where we're all headed. But then, just when things looked their bleakest, this incredible story started to unfold. It came from a peninsula in East Asia, and it was a story of something so remarkable that it grabbed the entire world's attention. So let's get right into it, because this wasn't just some local political event. Oh no, this was a truly remarkable moment in the history of peaceful resistance, a story that sent ripples across the entire globe. I mean, you have to understand this situation in South Korea was beyond serious. A full-on illegal attempt to grab power was underway, threatening to tear apart the fabric of daily life. And the world was watching, holding its breath, wondering if this was the end of Korean democracy. So what do you do when you're faced with that? With the full force of martial law, boots on the ground, bayonets, pure fear. Well, the people of South Korea made a choice, an incredible one. They chose solidarity over anger, peace over violence. They chose light. And that's really the heart of this story, isn't it? It's how they did it. This wasn't about some grand political strategy or backroom deals. It was about small, deeply human moments of connection and unbelievable courage. And think about their weapons in this fight. They weren't guns or rocks. On the freezing cold asphalt, they shared their warmth with total strangers. They opened their wallets to make sure people could get home safe. And in the face of gun barrels, they sang. They danced. They literally put their bodies on the line to shield one another. This quote just says it all, doesn't it? It really proves that fundamental truth, the softest things in the world can overcome the hardest. They were staring down this massive wave of darkness, and they turned it back, with nothing more than candles in their hands. So, this wasn't the story of one brave leader. No way. This was what they called the Revolution of Light, an epic co-written by tens of millions of ordinary, everyday citizens who just woke up and decided to do something absolutely extraordinary. And believe me, the world took notice. This powerful, collective act got political scientists and big thinkers everywhere talking, and it led to something nobody had ever really seen before. I mean, think about this. Why on earth would some of the world's top intellectuals nominate an entire country's population for the Nobel Peace Prize? Not a person, not a group, but everyone. They were trying to break a 125-year-old tradition. Well, it's because those thinkers saw something new. They gave it a name, the civil community. And what they meant was, this wasn't just a random mob. This was a whole society organizing itself on the fly, acting with incredible wisdom, and becoming a living, breathing shield for democracy itself. And this chart really puts it into perspective. For ages, the Nobel Peace Prize went to individuals, right? Like Martin Luther King Jr., or maybe a formal organization. Back in 2012, they stretched it to a whole group of countries, the EU. But this was a whole new level. The idea that peace can be created by the people themselves, from an awakened majority, that's a game changer. And this story doesn't end in Korea. The impact of this civil community went global. This was one of those moments in history that wasn't just for one nation, it was for all of us. You have to get how high the stakes were here. If Korean democracy had collapsed, a lot of people were afraid it would set off this terrifying domino effect across Asia, maybe even further. But instead, these citizens stood up and became a giant breakwater. They stopped that wave cold. And in doing so, they taught all of us a pretty sobering lesson. You can have the best laws, the best systems, but democracy itself, it's fragile. It's like a house of cards, really. And it'll all come tumbling down if ordinary people aren't willing to stand up and protect it. Millions. Just think about that number for a second. Not a few hundred activists, not a few thousand. Millions of regular folks, millions of tiny little lights, individual flames, all coming together to create this one massive, unbreakable beacon in the dark. So, whether they get the Nobel Prize or not, it almost doesn't matter. The citizens of South Korea have already built something permanent in the story of democracy. Those millions of candles, they're more than just light. They're a roadmap for the future. They're a signal to anyone out there, in any country, who feels lost in the dark. This is the story of a magnificent miracle, created not by gods or kings, but by ordinary people. It's living proof that peaceful solidarity is way, way stronger than any brute force. So let's remember this story. And maybe, just maybe, we can light a small candle of hope in our own hearts too.